Hi everyone. So I'm with Raj, who's an optometrist from a while back when I was in university. I was part two and Raj was part five. So Raj is practicing over in Queenstown or Queensland, sorry. He's running his own practice, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's really cool to have Raj on board. I really thank you for being on board because I think the chat we're going to have today is really going to be helpful for people who are either looking to get into optometry or young optometrists and kind of like what's the future. Like we that is kind of like what the aim of today is. So yeah, Raj, can you tell me about yourself and like your journey?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Shivan, in your podcast. I graduated in 2012, end of 2012, and I started working in 2013. I went rural. I went to Invercargill as my first job, and stayed in South Island for a couple of years. And then I moved to an ophthalmology practice in Auckland. I worked with a few surgeons for 4 years, and just before COVID, I moved to Gold Coast, and I've been practicing in an ophthalmology practice part time, as well as I purchased my practice about a year ago. I'm doing two jobs, one at my practice and with the opthal.
So congratulations on the purchasing of your practice a year ago. So you must be really
Thank you.
busy. What was okay? So you graduated in 2012 and you went to rural. So what's rural New Zealand and like what was it like practicing in a rural
Yes,
practice?
yes. In rural New Zealand, fortunately, I went to a practice that has mentored grads before. It was a four examination room practice in Invercargill, 2 hours south of Queenstown. It was great. I really enjoyed that, and I'm really glad that I did that because it kind of upskilled me more in practical sense, things that I didn't see in my last year of uni. Excuse me. Farming town, so you're seeing a lot more foreign bodies in the
Yeah.
eyes, and a lot of active people in Southland. So contact lenses. You're making mistakes, even in simple prescribing. You learn from that when you give too much plus to a hyperope, things like that.
Yeah.
I
That's
think
a
we've all done that.
that's a classic one. Because I think in university they teach us to push the plus. So I don't know
That's right.
if you're like getting into optometry, you may not they may not know what pushing the plus is. So usually we want to push the plus to get rid of accommodation. The accommodation is like when the eye does work to focus.
Yes.
We want to get rid of that. And in university, we're really told to push the plus, push the plus, push the plus. I remember when I started practicing, I'll be trying to push the plus. And a lot of people come back because they couldn't see in the distance. Their glasses were blurry.
Yes.
So that's kind of like that can happen sometimes. Were
That's right.
you are you from a rural area or have you where'd you grow up like when you were younger?
So I grew up in West Auckland. I grew up in, just a suburban Avondale area. Um, However, after spending most of my time in Auckland, I felt drawn to South Island to explore South Island. I really enjoyed tramping, so that was
Hmm.
one of the reasons I moved, and I thought I'll make the most of the weekends. So that was the main reason to go rural, and it was also something some people had mentioned that you'll be able to see more pathology and more clinical and more variety in your everyday practice in a rural setting. There was, and there's always need for rural optometrists, really. So my original plan was to move to Tauranga, but it's a very popular place to go. And then I ended up in Invercargill, and then I worked in Christchurch after that, and uh, I, I was doing long distance at the time, and eventually my girlfriend couldn't get a job there. So actually, then what happened was the practice I was working for liquidated.
Oh,
So yeah,
yeah.
so then I didn't have a job. So I applied a few places. I looked for 6 months, and then I worked in Auckland at an ophthalmology practice. Mm.
Nice. Okay. Prior to like, how'd you get into optometry? Were you like a undergrad or a postgrad?
Yes, it was.
What was your journey
Yeah.
like?
Look, yeah, I was an undergrad, and I knew that I wanted to do something health related.
Yeah.
Um, Fortunately, my eyes have been pretty good, so I hadn't really been to an optometrist. And then I saw an optometry as way to go into medicine actually. So I thought I'll do optometry and then I'll do grad entry into medicine. But then I started liking optometry, and I thought, oh, this is actually not bad. I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I'm enjoying the different type of people I'm meeting. Yeah, so that was the main inspiration to do something where I'm interacting with people and also health related. And I started fascinating me as I was going through uni, and I realized there's so much to it. My friends were asking like, oh, it's is there so much to optometry, a 5-year degree? Yeah, that's how and I've stayed in optometry for the last 10 years.
Okay, wow. Yeah, 10 years. Yeah, that's crazy. Because I've been
Mm.
out 7 years ago. Yeah, I'm similar to that. I always wanted to do something health related. I went for medicine. Unfortunately, didn't get into medicine. Then just got into optometry and just sort of stuck it and then graduated, started
Yes.
working. Yeah, so um, coming back to like the rural setting, for me, that kind of I think it'll scare a lot of people, right? Because if you're from a big city, or some people aspire to live in big cities, there are people who want to live rural. Don't get me wrong, but I think the majority probably want to live in a big city, right? I think the
That's right.
idea,
Yeah.
yeah. What led you to the? Because obviously the place you practiced at was it had great mentorship, which is another really important thing I think for if you're just about to graduate is to get a mentor, someone to look
Mhm.
after you. I think in any career, right, mentorship is really important. What sort of
Mhm.
like were you like scared to go to a rural? You said you were into tramps, you wanted to go to South Island. Were you scared, or do you think, let's say your peers, were they like, "Are you crazy? You're going to go to some place down south, like in a rural area? Like, are you mad? Like, why don't you go to a,
Yeah.
what? Are you scared of that? What were your thoughts? Because I think we think the move is permanent, but it never is. Like your first job isn't always your only job. It could be your only job, but then it doesn't have to be your only job. So yeah, the point I'm trying to make
Mhm.
is it's not permanent. But yeah, how was like the were you scared,
Yeah.
nervous? Like, what do you think? What
Yeah.
your friends think?
I had this sense of adventure when I decided to move. I was really keen to explore a different part of the country. And no, it didn't, people said, oh, it'll be very cold, but that didn't bother me. I think that sense of adventure what drove me to move Southland.
Yeah,
That
comfort
was the
zone,
main
right?
thing.
Getting
And
out of your comfort
yeah, that's
zone.
right. Being out of comfort zone, I felt like I needed to push myself out of my comfort zone.
Mhm.
And people say rural, but in modern day rural, you've got all your amenities that you need in your rural towns anyway.
Mhm.
Yes, you might not have this. I think the people might not have is the friend circle that they're used to. That's
Yeah,
probably
it's like I think
one
it's a
of the
number of
difficulties.
number of people, like number of young people you could say. Like if you go to like a
Mm.
rural area, it tends to be I don't know older people and yeah, no,
Yeah,
yeah, like young single people. I think that's kind of like if you're a
that's right.
graduate,
That's
yeah.
right. But with technology now, every place has like young professionals networking setups, and I was doing American 50s dancing club. So there was always socializing events that you could go to. So that's probably what inspired me to go rural. And grow, like my grandparents, they come from a rural part of India on the
Hmm.
coast. So having visited there, seeing coconut trees, oceans, and it was kind of like natural for me to go somewhere rural.
Yeah, and that first job, what did you do on your weekends? What sort of schedule did you have? Were you
Mm.
working Monday to
Yeah,
Friday,
so I was working.
Saturdays?
Yeah, that's right. I was working 8 to 5. There wasn't any weekend work. There was
Nice.
time for us to. I would, I would, I'd probably go to Queenstown area and Dunedin side. There was a lot of waterfalls, reserves to explore. So I did a lot of that. I even hitchhiked to Fox Glacier because there was no direct bus
Wow.
from
So
Newcastle.
you just
And
you put your thumb out and like you got a
yeah,
whoa,
that's
okay,
right.
that's pretty cool. Okay, you
And
must be a trusting guy then.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was it was interesting because there are certain rules you learn when you're hitchhiking. There are these French hitchhikers and European hitchhikers, and there's you make a queue. The first one gets to stand first, and then you go beyond that. And there
Okay.
was this. So when you're going from Wanaka side to the west coast, there's no network. Okay, so and most of the traffic goes in the morning.
Yeah.
So if you're too late, then you won't get any rides. Yeah, so eventually I made my way to Fox, where my other friends were coming down from Christchurch. We stayed at a lodge, and then we were doing some tramping in that area. And then we did some Rootburn tracks and a few other tracks, Greenstone Capel. So there was a lot of exploring, which I really enjoyed in the first year. It was the first year where you're getting paid and you're getting to,
Have a
not have
life.
to worry about exams, have a life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a big transition, I guess. I think for a lot of people there, because in university, you're kind of, I reckon, part five or the last year of university, you're basically working, right? You're working for free, working for free, and then you got obviously you got to work part time on the weekends. And you got to focus on your
Yep.
exams. You got to make sure you're keeping up to a lot of things. So that can be quite stressful. And I think that first
That's
year
right.
is like you could just kind of relax. You're getting money. The job is pretty. You're learning. It's pretty like, but you can go there, go to work. You get the beauty of you can go home and just sort of relax. Obviously, like you said, in the weekends, which is really important, is like to go exploring.
Mm.
And I think it's a key thing in rural areas, right? Because you don't have friends, so you can just text in the week, like your normal friend network. You can't just be like, okay, I'm going to meet up with my friends for the weekend. You got to like
Yes.
actively put yourself out there, which, like I said, is an adventure on its own, and it's a
Yes.
way to grow.
Did you find that you had more time to do things outside work, after work?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think
Mm.
because issue with I know like in community clinics, it was very like it may not finish on time or like you might go over, so it kind of disrupted after like activities afterwards. And plus, you're so like tired, you don't want to do
Yeah.
anything. With work, you get tired as well, but then because you get used to it, then you want to find things to do after work. And I did find like it's that switch, right? That's the beauty of optometry, I think, compared to any other career. You have that switch where once your patients are done, you might think about some patients you've had, but then it's off, right? You can just switch off and then go home and
Mm.
do your leisurely
Yes.
activities. Some jobs don't have that, especially if it's project based work. It can go on forever. You can just be like sitting down
Mm.
past 5 p.m. and the project's still
Sure.
going, Or if it's a fire you have to put out, you got to put
Yes.
that fire out. With optometry, it stops. Yeah. What do you think,
Yes,
Raj?
that's
Would you
right.
agree or would you disagree?
I agree. I agree. And I mean, in optometry, there's also a time where it can plateau, which happened to me. It was, usually after a couple of years. Um, the first 2 years were exciting. You're learning new
Yeah.
things. You're picking up, and then you start to realize that, oh, it's kind of becoming similar to what you've done before. There is that comes in. Yes, you have the weekends to do everything you want to do, explore, but then you kind of start looking further ahead, where you want to go, which direction you want to go.
You
And
start hitting the
sometimes, I was
ceiling.
wondering,
Mm,
yeah, I was
yeah.
wondering whether do I want to do this for the rest of my life?
Okay, tell me about this.
Um,
Yeah.
and then I think I switched work to work in an ophthalmic practice, which kind of changed the setting of how I looked at eyes,
Yeah.
and gave me a different facet to working in an ophthalmology setting,
So right, Raj,
which
coming back to
was
that. So let's say you're
mm,
2 years in your rural practice in the South Island. Okay,
yes,
then it's
yes.
been 2 years. Oh, okay, I think I've kind of explored everywhere. I've done everything I pretty much can do. Starting to become like Groundhog Day. What happened after that? Did you go to, was it to Christchurch or did you go straight to Auckland at the op?
So
No.
no, look, I ended up spending about 14 months in Invercargill. Then I moved
Yeah,
to Christchurch because
yeah,
I was planning to, I moved because my girlfriend now, who's she's my wife now, we were
yeah,
planning to get a job in the same place in Christchurch. So the new practice I worked with was a suburban practice, which was probably not as it didn't have any speciality as such. Um, and that's where I was getting a bit bored after 9 months or so, and that's when that practice closed. It gave me an opportunity to go somewhere new or
yeah,
do
yeah,
something
yeah.
different to what I've been doing. Um, and that's when I tried for working with surgeons. Yeah, is
What was
that
that?
what you're?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was that. What was that experience like? So let's say, okay, obviously if you're doing the suburban practice, we're just doing kind of, I presume it was just general glasses, right? So like crazy contact lenses or foreign bodies or pathology. It's just like routine eye exam. I need to get progressives, blah blah blah. Okay, which can get kind of, I think, repetitive and boring, but that makes a lot of money at the end of the day. So you found it kind of boring. There's a circumstance where you had to leave Christchurch to go to Auckland. What was it like working for the ophthalmology clinic? So that's another like thing because when we think about optometry, we think about
Yeah.
just selling glasses. This is very different. So yeah, tell me about the
Mm.
experience with the ophthalmologists.
Look, I felt like I was a student again, like without having any exams. So I was learning a lot, following the doctors, seeing what they're doing, seeing more. I was doing a lot of cataract assessments, LASIK suitability assessments. I was, I was doing post-ops for a lot of the doctors, and then seeing fluorescein angiography in real, you read about in the books, and actually performing it with the doctor. These kind
Wow.
of simple procedures was all making sense. Okay, this is why we're doing this. We're trying to find ischemia, and all these kind of simple things started to make sense. And that's where I found passion again for eye care and eye health. And I worked mainly with a refractive surgeon, but also with a medical retina specialist, and then got a few rounds to work with different glaucoma specialists. So it was variety of work, which I stayed in for 4 years, and then I started to feel like I know what's going on. There was another plateau coming after
Mm.
being there for 4 years, and that's when I decided, look, I would like to work for myself and probably look at owning a practice, things like that.
The
And
next
I wanted to
evolution.
explore more contact lenses as well. So there's always this question about, do I want to study further? Do I want to go research or start my own practice? So I wanted to explore, and my wife and I were keen to explore a new city. So that's when we moved to the Gold Coast.
Nice. Okay. It's
Mhm.
really okay. Coming back to the ophthalmology clinic. Obviously, like, because when we see patients at practice with like crazy eye diseases, we can treat some of them, but then there's some stuff that's just like a referral, right? Like you talk about ischemia, like if it's a CRBO, okay, we're just going to refer that off. But then you're taking the extra step, right? You got to figure out, okay, why is this ischemic CRBO or is it non-ischemic? You're figuring it out at that sort of level. So there's a bit more to learn. Obviously, you did reach that plateau because I guess medical retina, you kind of see the same pathologies, right? I guess or like there'll be 90% of the pathologies are pretty much all the same, right? And then you got the 10% which is like wacky and crazy. But I can see after 4 years it does become repetitive. Tell me about the transition to being a business owner. What was that like? So okay, so you're 4 years. Okay, I think it's time to move. Let's move up to Australia. And at that point, you never worked in Australia before, right? That was your first time working in Australia.
No.
Okay, so did you buy a practice straight away in the Gold Coast, or did you
Mhm.
buy over work then bought in?
Yeah, I started working at a practice on the Gold Coast, which had a topographer. So I wanted to see more contact lenses, and I did my contact lens certificate when I moved here. Um, and I did that for about year and a half to two
Who was
years.
it
But
through that certificate? Was it the what's it called ACO? The
that's right,
ACO, yeah, yeah,
advanced
yeah.
contact lens certificate. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, I did that, and to be honest, after 2 years, I decided to buy the practice. So because the practice wasn't seeing as many contact lenses patients, and it was more retail, and I felt like
It's kind of like the
I
suburban
needed to
practice in
challenge myself.
Christchurch, right? Kind of like did it feel like the suburban practice
Yeah,
in
that's right.
Christchurch?
That's
Okay,
right.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. It was, yeah. So I felt like I needed to challenge myself, and I did find myself another opthal to work with. So I switched part-time part-time opthal, because and working in a different opthal setting, we were seeing much higher volume of patients here.
Okay,
She is a general ophthalmologist, so I
okay.
still work with her, and dealing, so seeing about 60 patients a day.
Whoa,
Um,
okay. What
so
what
I
would you
was,
get? Sorry, and then on the opt-out setting, what did because I guess we can understand what happens in a general optometry clinic. You just do an eye exam. What do you do in an opt-out clinic specifically? Like, what do you do? The pre-check,
yeah,
or do you see a patient yourself? The entire back, like, do you do
yeah.
like a whole management yourself? Or how does it work?
So I would, any emergencies or any routine patients come in, I'll check their vision, do the history, do an initial slit lamp examination, see what they need. Then I'll transfer to a tech who would be doing OCTs, visual fields, and then I'll bring them back into a consulting room, get them ready for the doctor, make my suggestions, or first what I'm seeing on the slit lamp, and put some differentials, because it gets me thinking, and and then the doctors do their thing, manage as they wish, and then And then, after the patients are gone, we have an opportunity to discuss with the doctor which way, whether I was right or wrong, and where I could things like that. And it's come to a point where the doctors, they realize that you're intelligent, and they start trusting you more with other things, especially when it comes to lens ordering, intraocular lens ordering, and counseling the patients into what lens might be intraocular lens will be ideal. So I do a lot of that currently with patients before they see the doctor. So I give them options and see what their lifestyle is, advise accordingly what they will get out of the lens and what they won't. Well, like setting expectations correctly, because cataract surgery has become very refractive focused at the moment.
Okay.
So everyone has much higher expectations than they did 20 years ago.
So you can't pick a -3 still like after post-op. You've got to be like 20/20 vision. Yeah, you got to be like plano. Okay.
So,
Oh yeah, yeah.
so
You'd be crazy what I see like what I see here. So coming out of like a post-op. So yeah, so you got to be pretty like spot on.
yes, that's
Yeah.
right. And there's very little margin of error. And then seeing other things like pterygium surgeries, and then you see a lot of foreign body injuries as well, because they've been referred by the GPs. And ophthalms have a really good relationship with GPs.
Okay.
And a lot of patients will still go to their doctors, and then be sent to the ophthal practice, because some of the times I've noticed optometrists in their setting might say something, might say something to the patient, and not necessarily refer the patient.
Okay.
But the patient goes home. They're more concerned after they have a chat with their partners, and then they'll go see their GP for another opinion,
Hmm.
and then the GP will send them to the ophthal practice. So now when I look at it from the other end, I can see that in an optometry setting, if we are finding something in the eye, it's good to give them an opportunity. Would they like to get this further investigated or not? Because it plays in their mind later on.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I guess like
Mm.
if you say I've probably done this in the past actually. Like I'll say, oh, this person has a 6/7 cataract. You just mentioned cataract, and then like it's 6/7, not that bad, right? Or 6/7 minus, sorry, 6/6 minus, not that bad. But then they hear
Yes.
the word
Yeah.
cataract, they think about it and they go home, talk about it with their family. Cataract's really
Yes.
bad. So then they go to the
Yes.
GP, they get referred. Because the GP will be like, okay, it's cataract, I'm just going to refer this. Yeah. But then
Yes.
as
That's right.
optometry, like 6/6 minus cataract isn't too bad. But yeah, that's perfect. I can see that happening, definitely.
Mm.
Well, is
And
it? Yeah, sorry, you go.
yeah, go ahead. You go ahead.
I
I'll
was going to
finish
say,
that.
is there any difference between like working in New Zealand for a New Zealand ophthalmologist or an Australian ophthalmologist? And what's the relationship like between ophthalmologists in New Zealand versus the relationship between ophthalmologists in Australia?
I think in New Zealand, I've noticed there's a great relationship with ophthalmologists and optometrists,
Yeah.
especially in Auckland, from where I've worked. And interestingly, and fortunately, in Brisbane and Gold Coast, there are a lot of optometrists working with ophthalmologists. I'm from talking to some of the medical reps. They've mentioned it too, that it's different in Brisbane and Gold Coast compared to Melbourne, for example, or Sydney. Um, there is, look, I think the new generation of ophthalmologists are realizing that the optometrists have more clinical training
Yeah.
coming through the uni, and they're also realizing that it's important to be connected with the optometry community as primary eye care professionals. And there's some advances happening, as you know, in New Zealand and in UK with optometrists. It's in in Queensland. I think it's varied. There are, but majority are in support of optometrists doing what they do and empowering them in what they do.
Yeah, I can totally understand the generational divide, I guess, because
Yeah,
yeah, because
that's right.
I think but back then, I'm assuming I think the training for health related things in optometry was as good as it is now. Like obviously, like if you're an
That's true.
optometrist coming out of Auckland Uni, you've got therapeutics, versus like that wasn't the
Yeah,
case maybe 15 years
that's
ago,
right.
20 years ago. Yeah,
That's
so
right. That's right. Yeah. And I think another good thing would be for Optom students is to do a 6 months placement after graduating at an ophthalmology practice. because and I think they do that in America. They do a year internship somewhere, or fellowship they call it. But I think that would be really important for all optometrists to know what's actually happening at the other end, at the tertiary level.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, mm,
Because I learned like just even sitting down with ophthalmologists for one day or like a week, you learn so much. I remember I went to the acutes as well. Like, when I was in Christchurch, I had a day off, and I thought I'll go to the acutes, like the acute clinic. I clinic just to see what happens because you see people there, but I don't know what happens after that. It's kind of cool to like
yeah,
you see the waiting room. You actually see people getting seen by the registrars as well. So it's kind of
yeah.
really cool to see. You see
Yes,
hit
that's
the
right.
registrar on the phone, or the I think it's the house officer who's like on the phone, or like the registrar on the phone, like that,
Yes.
when you call them, like who picks it up, what are they doing while they're like, yeah, so it's kind
Mm,
of cool to see that in action. So there's a great
that's
tip, I
right.
think, for 6 months
Yeah.
maybe if you can afford 6 months. But yeah, I think just going there and seeing it is really important.
Yes. Yes, that's right. I think it's good you did that because it kind of puts what you're writing in paper into real life.
Exactly, right? It's like putting it into context. So you see like the result of what you've done.
That's right.
Yeah, I think the best thing for people to like really experience is like being a patient as well. That's kind of like because we talked about our eyes being perfect. I've never been a patient before, but until you've been a patient for optometrists, you kind of
Mm,
get a better understanding of what you actually do in your job. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but yeah, it's kind of like going to a
mm.
restaurant and actually you're going through the experience of being in a restaurant. If that makes sense, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
kind of getting that context. So yeah, how are you finding? So yeah, sorry, you're working part time. You're working part time in an ophthalmology clinic. You're working part time in this practice. You're thinking, I want to do contact lenses. I want to buy in. How did that process go?
Yeah, it was basically exploring what's out there and what's available, and visiting few practices. You're checking out the location, seeing uh, the turnover, and you're looking at financials. And as an optometrist, it doesn't make sense.
No,
You
business.
haven't looked at any of those things before, and you almost need a guide or someone you can trust to, give you where you can speak to them and say, hey, what do you think? Is this a good opportunity? And an accountant, you need an accountant to talk to who can do your due diligence. And eventually, the practice I ended up with, which was a good opportunity, is about 70 k's from where I live. So it's in Brisbane. So it was at a good value that I got, and I saw room for expansion because there were two examination rooms available,
Yeah.
and that gave me some opportunity to specialize in future if I wanted to. And yeah, I thought, okay, let's just bite the bullet and jump up into this challenge. And the last year's been so much learning non-clinical stuff, learning how to run a business, how to do zero, how to do payroll, how to
Manage people.
manage people. Yes, how to
Yeah,
manage
yeah, yeah.
people, and marketing. All you don't learn about these things in optometry school.
No, I don't. I think you have to learn them on the job, right? You can't really do a course on like they could teach us
Mm,
it, but then people will be like, "Why am I learning this?" Or will not stick in. You got to experience it for yourself. So I guess like yeah,
mm,
owning your practice and then going through that whole motion. I've never done it before, but I can imagine it's like such a big steep
mm.
learning curve. So correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you mentioned this before, but you're working part time. Was it the place that you bought into, or you working part time somewhere else and then you saw this opportunity?
Yes, the place that I was working in, I quit that
Yeah.
workplace, and then I saw this opportunity, and I
Yeah, so
took this.
with the opportunity, like, were you working there just as an employee, just to make sure, like, because you can't just buy straight away, can you? You can't just be like, day one from the door, you're an owner. You got to work there for a bit, slowly.
No,
Build,
not
no,
necessarily. No, I
okay,
just bought the practice. She
wow, okay,
wanted, so the previous owner wanted out,
yeah,
wanted to move on from owning a practice, um, and it was a full 100% handover.
yeah.
Yeah, so kind of like buying a house or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Does the previous owner still working there, or she's like,
she helped me out for three
yeah?
months, three to
So there's
four
a transition
months.
period, yeah. So there's a bit of
Yeah, there
like,
was a transition period,
yeah,
and yeah, so that was interesting, and that was good when the real responsibility comes in when that person leaves. You've got to manage the staff because my staff left, and it's been difficult finding reliable staff.
yeah,
So finally, I'm getting to a stage where there's reliable staff. I have another optometrist to work with me who's local. So there's about four of us now, and my wife's helping me with accounting because
Nice.
initially it was I was doing the bookkeeping, marketing, administration, and seeing patients, but then uh, in the first 6 months you kind of keep your books open and you realize that you've got to be available as much as possible to see as many patients. But then when you're a clinician, you don't get to see how the whole practice is running.
Hmm.
So there's no one, you're the only one who's can vision what's happening with the practice, where you want to take the practice to. So you've got to take a bit of time out, step back. So working on the practice rather than working in the
In
practice.
practice, yeah, yeah, yeah. You got to work
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
business, not in the business. Yeah, yeah. So you got
that's
to,
right.
yeah.
That's
It's
right.
it's about sharpening the X too. So like, you can imagine like you're like the tool. You're like using yourself as a tool to do the eye test. But you need to take
Yes.
time to sharpen that tool to like work on the business, make sure people are happy, make sure you're making the hiring, the marketing. Yeah, so it's a lot of hats you got to put on, I guess. What's your biggest learning lesson from all this?
Uh, from owning a practice
Yeah, in fact, it's like
or
so from like because you talked about as a clinician, you're just like you got the blinkers on, you're focusing on
mm,
the eye test, the
mm,
patient, just doing a job,
mm,
going home and enjoying life. What's
mm,
the
mm.
what's that big like that you can't there'll be a pill you take, right? You realize, oh my God, it's more than just the eye test. And what's your
That's
learning
right.
lesson from that?
I think what I've learned is that there is a responsibility comes from owning a practice, which is um, doing the right thing for the patient, and that patient's if you do a good job, the patient's going to come back. If you don't do a good job, the patient's still going to come back unhappy.
Hmm.
So I think the lesson would be that I need to be more thorough in getting it right the first time. So when you're an employee optometrist, it's a bit different. Yes, you're responsible, um, but it's a little bit different kind of responsibility when you're because your reputation is on the line
Hmm.
when you're owning a practice, and I think and that's what drives your practice. So yeah, I don't know if that's a lesson as such, but just the weight on your shoulders, you feel that you've got to do a good job on your patients and be there for them as well. You can't just close up shop, and if you're not there, then they'll go somewhere else.
That's true. Okay, because how busy are you booked out weeks in advance, are you months in advance? You don't have to say actually,
Um,
but yeah, yeah. But I know some
okay.
places are just like they
Mm,
obviously have the capacity to book themselves out that far ahead because they've got the marketing
yes,
behind them. But then yeah, it's crazy.
yes,
Like if they take a day off, then like those people have to book. If they're sick, for
yeah,
example,
that's
they've got
right.
to book like months and weeks in advance, and yeah, they do go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And do you feel like it's quite hard because you're a 100% owner for your business? Is it hard with corporates or being a small business, or it doesn't matter? What's the
Oh yeah.
how's that
It,
journey going?
it's a challenge because as a small business owner, you don't have the big marketing budget that a
Mm,
lot of the big corporates have. But as a small business owner, you are the face of your practice. So people are coming to see you, and so you've got to consistently show up to your practice. And people like to see the same person because they've opened up to that person. So there is a rapport that you build with your patients. And that's the main value I see in independent practice. Yeah, so
I
it's
agree. I agree with that, Raj. Yeah, because if you go
yeah,
to a big corporate, we'll say if you go to a big corporate, it's not very likely you're going to see the same person again. Like, would you agree? But if you
mm,
go to
I agree.
a practice
Mm,
like where you're working at, for example, you're going to see Raj. And I think a lot of people do value that. I think
yes.
continuity of care or seeing the same person, the consistency of care is really important for people,
Mm,
especially when it comes to eyes, health. Like, who likes seeing a different
mm,
person every single time? Vision,
mm,
what we do here is very intimate as well. So, like you said, opening up to like a different person every single time is not so great. That's where the value really
yes.
comes in. Yeah.
And I think the clinician gets the joy when the patient comes back to see you, and you've seen them a few times. There is a friendship that builds, between the patient and the clinician. It's and I think that's where the passion starts to come back.
Yeah.
When you're seeing the same person, seeing the family members, there is a respect that comes in that, oh, okay, we'll go see this optometrist because we know he's good, or something like that. So you take pride in your work.
Exactly, because I think it's more than yeah. I was thinking about this a lot. So there's this book called Bullshit Jobs by Daniel Grober. So he's
What?
like a commentator. It's called Bullshit Jobs by Daniel Grober. It's such a
Okay.
good book. I read it. I listened to it with my dad last year. So
Yep.
basically, the synopsis of the book talks about how like there's a lot of jobs out there that are just essentially they don't really do much in terms of but they have to be there. Some examples of jobs are like if you're a manager, you tend to employ people just to make yourself look good. The more people you have employed, the better you look. But these people don't have work to do, so they've got to create work for themselves. Hence, it's kind of like a bullshit job. That's a very quick synopsis of it. But the point I'm trying to make is we come to like enjoyment of career, enjoyment of job. Money's not the number one thing, and I think a lot of people think money is the number one goal. But money
Mm,
is important. Don't get me wrong; it's important to like for your lifestyle, for survival, for food, to at least enjoy things on
mm,
this planet.
mm,
But the really important thing is the impact you provide on society. So the problem with bullshit jobs is you can get money from them, but you don't perceive like you're impacting the business. Like you don't perceive anything like positive coming out of the job that you're doing if it's a bullshit job. Versus the optometry, because you're providing value for others, that's where the enjoyment comes from. Would you agree? So you're paid
mm.
you're paid decent salary, so you're not doing charity work, but at the end of the day, you're also providing a very strong impact for people, and that's what provides a lot of value. Like you said, if you're a business owner, we talk about your reputation being on the line. If you're an employee, you don't have skin in the game. It's important what you do, but then if you're a business owner, you definitely have skin in the game, which motivates you. And the other thing too is if you're providing value for people because it's you, it's not so you're not working for someone else. It's like you providing that value. It's just so much more rewarding. Would you agree on that? Does that
That's
make
right.
sense?
I,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I fully agree with you.
And
I
that's where the
think
joy
it's,
comes back into the career.
yeah,
I think a lot of people
that's
lose
right.
that because they think about the money or they think about the financials too much. Yeah, I don't know. That
Right.
was me, I think.
Yes, I agree. I know you've explored that area quite a lot in the forums, and I've seen you go
Yeah.
deeper into that. And it makes everyone think. I think you've raised some really good questions there.
Thank you very much. Thank
And
you.
yeah, it's finding the joy in your work after when it starts to plateau is where the main challenge. I think you're more imploring. I think is that if that's such a word where
I'm
you're going
imploring
inside.
inside, yeah,
Yeah.
to look inside. It gets, yeah, exploring from within, right? Yeah, yeah. I guess because I think I was thinking I had a point. Yeah, no, yeah. I think that's a really good point, Raj. I really thank you for saying that. 'Cause I feel like a lot of
Mm.
the questions are just stupid and silly. Like they're very, they're not based on cases. It's about like existential dread in the career. Having an existential
Yeah.
crisis in the career.
I think you've been a loudspeaker for many citizens who
Yeah.
who've yeah who've been wondering the same questions, and I
Thanks.
and some of the questions I could relate to when I was 2 years out, 3 years out, yeah, when I was getting the plateau stage. But it's about I think the key thing is to keep challenging yourself and if you're in
Yeah.
a group of people who know more than you, it allows you to grow. Because if you're the smartest person in your group, then you're not really growing.
No. Yeah, exactly. It's
Mm,
like if you go to the gym and you're the strongest one there, you need to find another room. Yeah, you're exactly right. And I
mm,
think when it comes to
mm,
the point of plateauing, don't look at plateauing as a bad thing. Look at it as a sign that you've reached that you meet that level
mm,
of expertise. It's time to find a new challenge. Like I said, the new challenge to like put yourself outside your comfort zone, and then that's
yes,
where you start growing
yes,
again. And you just repeat that process. So once you've
yes,
achieved one purpose, you need to find the other one to go after. So once you climb that mountain once, you want to find another mountain to climb, which is what human progress is. So I think it's pretty
yeah,
normal to feel like if you feel like you're plateauing. And I think maybe a lot of people might feel that way, or they're scared of feeling like, oh my God, it's going to be
yes,
like this for the rest of my life. But it's not. It's things are temporary. Misery is temporary. So yeah, you can always
yes, I
continue to
agree.
get better. Yeah,
There's a good book called The Mastery by Robert Greene.
yeah,
I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it talks about that. It talks about patience, and it talks about 10 years of your first 10 years is your apprenticeship period. Next 10 years you're basically honing that skill set, and then the next 10 years is basically mastery, which is when you've become an expert. So it's a much slower process, and it requires having patience in what you're doing and just getting better at it.
yeah. And I think one of my bosses told me one time. He said like to get really good at something, it's actually quite boring because it's just turning up, doing the same thing every day, and
Mm,
then like kind of
yeah,
not the same as plateauing. Plateauing is where you feel like you've reached a certain level and you don't know what the next level is.
yes,
But then in terms of
yes,
mastery, like it's kind of like just turning up, doing the same thing, being consistent, which is in a
yes,
sense not very exciting. It's a bit boring, but then you got a goal
yes.
to achieve.
But one cool thing that's happening now is when you've mastered one skill set, the technology is allowing you to master another skill set and
Yes.
join the two. So the fusion of two different disciplines is happening more now, and it's the collaboration is what's gonna drive new jobs.
Exactly. I definitely agree. So there's a book called Generalist versus Specialist by David Epstein. So he talks about how like a specialist is someone who does like yeah. So in the beginning, it's really good. I don't know if you're a sports fan, right? You must be. So he gives like an example of these two people, so Roger Federer and Tiger Woods. So I'm not sure if the history is actually correct, but with Tiger Woods, he practiced golf since he was like 3 years old, like doing the same thing, putting, putting, putting. So like he practiced the same skill again and again and again. Versus Roger Federer, apparently he played like a huge variety of sports. He didn't want to go like when he was playing tennis, he didn't want to be in the top age bracket because he wanted to have fun and play with his friends. But then with golf is very like there's two rule sets. So golf is very you need to be specialized in one particular skill to perform well. But because you have entire control of like, for example, if the ball is here, no one can stop you from like there's no one against you really because you've got to hit the
Hmm.
ball in a certain way to get into a certain area. There could be the wind and weather, but it's pretty controlled, right? So you've got to be very
Okay.
specialist in your skill set.
Hmm.
Versus in tennis, you have no control of how the ball is coming to you, right? The person
Hmm.
on the other end could do a backspin, a topspin, whatever. I don't know tennis, but then that's where you've got to be very generalistic in your role. And then because Roger Federer had this background of playing different sports, because he likes cricket as well, believe it or not, in the Swiss.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a fan of cricket. So uh, he had like a whole variety of things, and that's why he was successful. So translate into like the world of careers, depending on what kind of rule set you're in. The problem with specialization is that you've got artificial intelligence and, like you said, technology, right? So
Hmm.
if you're very specific on one particular thing, that's what artificial intelligence and computers are really good at automating. So you want to be someone who's a generalist. A generalist is someone who, like you said, combines different fields together, like combining two things together to become really creative in a way, or combine two contexts together. Yeah, so that's where
That's right.
that's really important.
Yeah, I've just started reading a book. I think it's called Deep Focus or something, and
By Cal Newport. Cal Newport.
yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's talking a little bit about that at the start, where this person who's managed to um, combine a few different skill sets into one, and have become this superpower with his skill sets, and it's wanted in many companies.
Yeah, because it's very hard to find that thing. Okay, I know, like some people are thinking, oh, because you probably heard of ChatGPT and OpenAI how they come up with
Yeah.
like language models to be super creative. But I think it's yeah,
Yeah.
it's the idea of combining two different contexts and fields together to like
Yes.
yeah. So for me,
Yes.
if I want to talk about myself, if you don't mind, but like for me, it's
Yeah, of
combining
course.
technology and programming with optometry. So I think that's quite unique and niche. Not many people are doing that. So that's kind of
I
like what I
agree.
want to
I
do.
agree.
Even content creation too, because I feel like there's actually not a lot of information about like if you want to look up how to run a business in optometry, do you think there's much out there? Probably not, right? There's like probably books on small businesses or how to run like this other type of business, but optometry is very unique, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I think that's, someone who knows how to do business and run optometry, that's a good skill set, potentially becoming mentors for many people. Interestingly, come across a few, I think a couple of optometrists who've become motivational speakers.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
That's a future, that's your next plateau, I think.
so you've raised a really good point there that what you're doing is trying to combine two different things, and optometrists have that flexibility to do that, pick up another skill set while still being a clinician and combine the two. Engineering, for example, yeah, there's so many in America. Optoms are getting into anterior imaging and designing devices that are used to get a good photo on the ocular surface. So yeah, there's watch the space. I think there's going to be a lot coming in. I think a patient once asked me if I'd heard of ChatGPT because he was very techy,
Yeah.
and actually I'd seen your questions on the forum. So I said, a friend of mine is actually doing programming on top of optometry. So yeah, which was quite fascinating for him.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. You can ask like a question about some eye related thing and it comes up with a response. I made a little like a little mini app where you could type because I really hate writing referral letters. It's like the worst. It's not
Yeah,
that
yeah,
bad, but like it's so I created a little app where you could just put in a few prompts and it would automatically generate referral letters. So it would say like dear
oh
sir.
wow,
I'll show you at the end, but
okay,
it says like oh yeah, like dear, dear
Cool.
Raj, like if you want to leave to a patient, it'll say, dear Raj, thank you for coming for our eye test today. Your vision is really good. You have cataracts, blah blah blah. Not you in
Cool.
particular, but like you can do that sort of stuff. So
Yeah,
that's kind
yeah.
of like idea I came up with, and that uses so ChatGPT is I think pioneered by OpenAI. So they've got these kind of language models, so you can kind of plug
Yeah.
your app into their little language model, and it'll come up with
Okay.
that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of
Oh, wow.
a little
That's
project I
pretty
can show
cool.
you. Yeah, show you at the end. So that's kind of like using artificial intelligence to make the job a bit easier, I guess. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, what I wanted to ask you is how is hiring and because I've got this big theory that optometrists are really difficult to come by, and because they're difficult to come by, a lot of them turn to locums because locuming is there are benefits to
Mm,
locuming, right? You've got autonomy, you've got a higher rate as well, higher asking rate so you can make money plus you've got autonomy,
mm,
which are two things that make people happy.
mm.
I've got this prediction where I think most people, because there's so much demand in optometry or for optometrists, most of them will want to become locums, or we're going to see a lot of locums. How does that affect your business, like in terms of retaining an optometrist, getting an optometrist? Is it a big deal or not really?
Yeah, I think retaining an optometrist is probably going to be more challenging with locoming becoming more prevalent.
And job
Uh,
shortages, I guess, yeah, or just like the overall shortage in
yeah,
optometrists, yeah,
that's
because
right.
they can
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like go to another, they can like obviously those recruiters ask like nearly every day, like, do you want to
Yeah.
work here? Salaries are going up. Yeah, how's it?
But it's not for everyone though. I think people
Yeah,
still like to come to the same workplace where they can talk to the team. I think having a good team, good work
mm,
culture is very important, where everyone feels supported and positive, and mm, you're not in a place where you feel like unwanted. So once you have that, I think it gives more meaning to working in that same practice. And when people have families, they generally want some sort of stability at work,
yeah,
so they can come home and deal with the mess with the kids and all. But I think there is still quite a few people who would prefer to work in one place,
yeah.
if provided there's the right work culture, right pay. Yeah. So as an employer, that's the kind of challenge, trying to create that environment. With If you've got a really small team, it gets a little bit harder. You
Mm,
almost have to be, well, you have to be self-driven to show up to work. But if you've got a slightly bigger team, like even 4 to 6 people team is good enough. You can interact with everyone. Um, but if you're just two-man team, if you're an optom and dispenser, it's yeah, I think it's okay if that's your friends, best friends, but I think eventually you it would it not might not be sustainable for long term.
yeah, so you got to pick are you with a business partner at the moment, or are you just 100% ownership for this practice?
Yeah, it's my 100% ownership,
Okay,
and
because a lot of people do like half dispenser. So the team is very important. Like the person it's basically a marriage,
yeah,
right? When you're buying into a practice with someone, like it's pretty much. I've heard it's a marriage.
mm,
It can go really wrong or really right.
that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. I think it was affordable enough for me to take a business loan and
Mm.
get this on my own. And then, of course, I kept the opthal job because it gave me a steady source of income while I was trying to build a practice.
Yeah.
So that's why I kept the opthal role as well. And I like the clinical stuff I see here, so that's always keeps me on my toes. Mm,
Nice. So if you're very experienced, you must know so much, Raj. And I really like how we go back to we talk about the business, how to retain staff. Like, yeah, work culture is really
mm,
important. I think people see the salary, they come for the salary, but they stay for the perks of the job. Like, nothing beats the value of having good management. And if things are good
mm.
enough, you don't have to be better than other people if that makes sense. Like if you hit
Yeah,
you're present at work, you care about like the people because a lot of people when you go to work and you feel detached, that's where people want to leave and go somewhere else. So
yes,
yeah, so
yes,
if a person knows that they're progressing in their career, you're just a
yes.
knock away. Like I can knock on your door. Hey,
Mm,
I've got this problem. How do I fix this?
mm.
Like yeah, that's kind of really good to have, and that's why people stay rather than because it's a risk to
Yes.
go for it like somewhere else for a bigger salary, and you're going to miss out on hey, there's a great team. I'm
Yeah.
already working out. I've got a really great boss, great mentor. I'm progressing in my career.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
think it's a non. I think eventually, any employee is looking for non-financial benefits in
yeah.
by working in that same place, which is there an opportunity to grow further? Is there an opportunity to learn? Is so sometimes, good employers will provide some learning opportunities for their employees to grow in different skill sets,
Mhm.
which is valued by, if you choose it right, the employee. will feel very much appreciated because they're investing on that employee to stay with the team.
I like that. Like I said, was it non-financial opportunity, non-financial benefits? Yeah, I really like that
Benefits,
term.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
benefits, yeah.
It doesn't take a lot of money to do that. It just takes a lot of care, presence,
Yes,
and yeah. And I
yes.
like how you're reading books too, Raj, because you're sharpening your own sword. So yeah.
Yeah, I need to look, and I think I'm probably a bit late, but I feel like it's hard to read books with two kids. So, but I'm using more audiobooks, and
Nice.
I do miss having a physical book to read.
Yeah.
Yeah, but some self-development books, and there's some well-known, just coming into Ryan Holiday's books,
Oh yeah, a
and
bit of
uh,
not Socrates. I was gonna say what Stoicism. Bit of
yeah,
Stoics. Yeah,
uh, there's
yeah.
something. Hardship's the only way, or something
Oh,
like that.
the obstacle is the way. Obstacle is the way.
The
Yeah.
obstacles way, yeah, yeah. So, yeah. So just exploring these books at the moment, and I think that helps you do a bit of self-reflection. And as a business owner, I think my main challenge is time management. Managing time. I feel like I should have 40 hours in a day, but I don't. So
It's more than
it's
that. Spills over, yeah. And I think that too is really key because I feel like a lot of business owners, I don't know if I'm wrong, I feel like a lot of them are just putting out fires. But I say they're putting out fires, they're just like trying to keep things afloat
mm,
versus like sharpening the sword, trying to like work on the business, not in the
mhm,
business. Yeah, which can be it's challenging for some people, right? Especially if they have to work, be at work doing eye tests,
mm,
they have to do that sort of stuff. So yeah, no, I
mm.
really think it's really, really good. Any tips for like a younger optometrist? Like, do you have like a two sentences? What's your biggest like tip for an optometrist, young one coming through?
I think it would be to find a mentor. Find a mentor who's 10, 15 years or 20 years in the game,
Yeah,
and even if possible, have a regular meeting with them, and maybe pay them to for the time for their time. But I think that's going to give you a further vision of what's to come and prepare you accordingly. I think finding that mentor is very, very important, and I wish I had that when I was younger. But when you're moving into different practices, it's hard to find someone who'll stick, who you can consistently see. But the ophthalmologist I work for, and I'm grateful for, has become my mentor, was my mentor, and is still, very easily. I can easily talk to him at whenever I want to. That's been very, very helpful for me. Um, and the other thing would be to go rural. Push yourself when you're independent, when you don't have any dependents to worry about. Go out and explore. Go for a year, 2 years. 2 years is a good time to explore, and you'll see new opportunities come up that you might not get in a city practice. And because after 2 years working in a city, you might get bored and you'd be wondering what to do next.
yeah.
But
Challenge
having
yourself. That's the key is
that's right.
challenge yourself. Yeah,
Challenge yourself. Yeah, that's right.
excellent. And like, what does optometry mean to you? Like, what do you enjoy about it? Like, has the definition changed? What does it mean to you? Where's the joy come from? Because it sounds like to me, Raj, there have been ups and downs, which is realistic, right? Because I feel like a person like yourself,
Mm,
you're very successful. You got your practice. You worked at
mm.
lots of places. You got a lot of knowledge. It feels like a person like you would just enjoy it every single day. It's just every day is joy. And for someone who's kind of miserable, it's not realistic, right? But it feels like to me,
Oh yeah.
you've had the ups and downs. You've dealt with the downs by challenging yourself. What's something you've like come back to find joy in the career? What's something you enjoy about optometry? What's the joy?
It would be patient interactions,
Yeah.
being able to solve the problems, eye health problems, and seeing them and seeing them a smile on their face when they've come back and their problems gone. Especially the corneal erosion patients. They're so grateful after you
Yeah.
put a bandage contact lens on their eyes, and
Oh
so
yeah,
just
I've had that. Yeah. So one guy, he went to the GP. They couldn't do anything. Went to like he's not going to go to the eye clinic and be seen straight away. Bandage contact lens. He's like the happiest guy in the world. Like just that person is like in his shoes. He's like, I need someone just to help me. He's in pain, but not
yeah,
life threatening pain, but bad pain because the cornea is the most sensitive part of the body, and just a simple bandage
yeah,
contact lens takes a minute, and it's like
yeah.
yeah. So that is rewarding when you do that sort of
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah. So things like that, simple things. I think finding joy in simple things is what I'm really enjoying in optometry. Yeah. Mm, mm.
That's
And
good.
another good thing to keep in mind is, yes, optometry is great, but it also gives me time to enjoy time with my family,
Yeah.
which is, we don't realize that we think of the profession on its own, but
Mm.
it lets you have a life outside your daytime job. Yeah.
Yeah, I think people forget, like people think about the title of their job too much, but not the day to day. And part of the day to day is like what you do outside the job, which is getting to switch off, go home, and just like enjoy family
Yeah.
time, or all your hobbies, or whatever like that.
Yes. Yeah. Enjoy your hobbies, and when you've got kids, your focus shifts, and you're thinking about your kids, and you want to go home. If they're sick or something, you can do that in optometry.
Excellent,
Mm.
cool. Any last words you want to say? I don't know if I've kind of like, is there anything you want to really, what anything on your chest you want to just say to people?
I think um, I think we've covered most aspects about what I would say to young optoms. We've covered challenging yourself, going to work in an ophthalmology setting, going to go to rural setting, having patience in the role you're doing, not giving up too soon,
Mhm.
giving it time to really see how things unfold. Yeah, I think we've covered everything.
Perfect. Cool. I think I'm really happy with the conversation we've had today. I've learned a lot about the challenges and yeah, there are ups and downs. So that makes it really realistic
Yes,
for
I
me.
agree.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
and I
I'm
think
like,
that's what makes you
yeah,
grow. If you've, yeah, it's impractical to be happy all the time. There's going to
exactly.
be ups and downs, and that when you're up, when things don't go the way you plan it to be, that's when you find new opportunities.
Reassess and come back
That's
stronger.
right.
Anyway, yeah, thank you very much, Raj, for today's topic. I learned so much. Good luck with the business. Good luck with where you're at in Gold Coast, in the Gold Coast. I
Thank
really,
you.
really hope
Thank you.
it goes really well. Good luck with the practice as well. So yeah, thank you very much for today.
Thank you,
Cool.
Shivan. Thanks for having me in your podcast, and I like what you're doing, and I wish you all the best.
No worries. Thank you very much. Cool. So.